Call the meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In the back.
Okay, it's noted everybody's here, so we don't need to call the roll. Any amendments to the agenda?
We have items 2, 4, and 5. Were added to the agenda contingent upon yesterday's meeting, the outcome of yesterday's meeting. So we would pull those from this agenda.
So we're not going to do any of those.
So items 2, 4, and 5.
Doing 1 and 3 only. Okay, thank you. Any awards or presentations? The public.
Sir.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for being here. He loves it here. Do you have anybody online? Any public comment?
I don't have any hand raised.
Okay. No public comment. We'll go into our regular agenda. And first we have discuss amendment to establish an IGA regarding party contributions to LFRA. That's Emily, that's your piece?
Sure, and it's really just a question for the board, more so than a presentation, but I understand that to be discussed today is whether the rural will be contributing additional funding to LFRA beyond the 80-20 split that's currently in the IGA. In my communications with Linda Glesney, who's the rural's attorney, she said that it was the desire, or represented anyway, that it was the desire of the rural board to memorialize that. How much funding will be provided, what the purpose of the funding is, and for how long it will last. I don't have an opinion on that really one way or the other. If the intent or desire is to memorialize the additional funding in an IGA amendment, in some respects that takes LFRA out of the process, because the IGA is between the rural and the city. And so although I can draft it and be a part of the conversation, at the end of the day, this board doesn't sign anything. So I would be a little bit removed. Another option would be to do a letter agreement, which would be a little less formal. Another option would be to do nothing at all. It's really up to the parties as to what you want to do. And so I just wanted to open that conversation so I could get more information about what the intent and desires of all the folks around the table are.
If I could, I'll go first and tell you where we left everything.
Yeah.
I believe yesterday was we agreed as a rural board for the next 3 years through the end of year 2026, or if a district should be formed first, we will pay for the additional personnel that the chief asked for in a previous meeting. Ballpark figure, that is about $7 million. Is that correct, Chief? Over the course of 3 years?
Over the course of that period, yes.
Yeah. And the rural will pick that up. That's above and beyond the 80-20. What we wanted to do is just have some type of documentation, whereas understanding that we're continuing with our 80-20 relationship. And in terms of being a good partner, we were fortunate to have some extra money from oil and gas reserves. We're going to contribute that money for those designated personnel only.
Got it. Okay.
That's the first part.
Okay.
The second part is equipment replacement. And we agreed that we would pay dollar for dollar matching the city up to $1.425 million, which the reason it's not 1.3, which would be half of the 2.6 requested, is we're looking at what the chief calls penalties, and that's probably the right terminology. And the sooner we can make a decision and get to the the vendors on this, the cheaper it's going to be. But we are committed as a rural board to dollar for dollar on any match the city will make.
I'm just taking some notes really rapidly. Thank you for updating me. Can you tell me again what the total amount was, dollar for dollar, up to 1.24, 1.42? I think I got it mixed up.
1.425 million.
1.425. Got it. Thank you.
Because we're looking at potentially $250,000 in penalties.
Yep.
And just as important, a long delay time, which I don't think needs to go into the verbiage here, but we are concerned about, we may be waiting another couple hundred days to get equipment if we cannot get these orders in right away.
Yeah.
It's beyond the 3 years. It's
Yeah.
3 years plus 2
Two
days.
Okay. I got it. Well, I've had some conversations with Linda. I had a conversation this morning with Vince Jungles there at the city. And the three of us are trying to schedule a meeting to discuss. So, I think, if we were just talking about the personnel piece, and we could do this in a couple of different halves, but if we were just talking about the personnel piece, I would say you could probably memorialize this in a letter agreement, right? An addendum or a waiver of the IGA terms. With the dollar for dollar match provisions, though, because that is a transaction or an agreement between the rural and the city, I do think an IGA amendment is the more appropriate place for that to live. But I'd be interested in your thoughts if that's the direction you want to go, or if you want me to talk to Linda and Vince about going in a different direction.
Paul, did you have a comment?
Yes, I just want to make sure that I understand what we said as well. Those are totally two different issues, right?
Yep.
So the personnel issue, certainly we can document that one way, and then the vehicles another way. So I just want to make sure that that was really.
You could, because the personnel issue does not appear to impact the city. And so we could do that in a letter. The way that I would propose to do it is a letter from the rural to LFRA saying, as you know, we have agreed to provide the following funding for the following purposes, that this is over and above the funding that's provided in the IGA, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have LFRA sign off on it at the bottom of the letter, right? So at least we have something that demonstrates the meeting of the minds between the two parties. The other one does involve the city, and so that I would put into an IGA amendment. And we could do those two pieces separately, or we could say, let's roll everything into an IGA amendment and only have one document. And I can go either way on that.
Again, one of our priorities is doing this as quickly as possible, and that's why we separate the two. So if we could focus on the equipment replacement piece. First of all, we don't know if the city can and will do this, but assuming they can, we need to do it the fastest way we can so that we can get a order placed.
Yeah, got it. I will today, this evening, if not, depending on how long this meeting goes, I will reach out to Linda and Vince and try to get something on the calendar sooner rather than later so that we can have that conversation with them, because really, in some respects, the LFRA is not the master of its own destiny in this part, right? We've really got to have the other parties at the table to have the conversation with us. So I'm happy to push that forward, though, and get it on the calendar so we can move quickly.
Chief, comments further on this?
No, I think it's just a matter of discussion between the two at this point.
Paul, did I leave anything out?
No, I think you nailed it.
Mayor, you were there yesterday.
Yeah, I just don't know if it would help to add some of the drop dead dates.
Absolutely, yeah.
Even if.
Yeah,
it's
if
just
there
a
are,
line-
it certainly
even if
would.
It's just an attachment.
Yeah, so can I grab that from you?
Yeah, I can call it out if you want me
Yeah,
to.
so I want Fraser to explain, we got some degree of reprieve on the apparatus to a 30-day agreement.
Okay, that
So,
helps.
what was happening at the end of 2023 was the original agreement. That's when it was called to our attention. So the chairman had asked me to reach out. So Chief Ward reached out. We got a second agreement, which now, because it's 30 days, it's February 7th. So that is the absolute drop dead date. After that, basically, we would lose the reserve diesel engines, okay, because of basically green technology. And after February 7th, the price increase from SVI would also go up and increase by 240 days. So that's 3 years plus 240 on top of that. So total price increase would be 250,980, anything after February 7th. So we were talking about January 12th, even yesterday.
Yeah.
This is the latest that we have, so.
So
Very
let
much
me,
like yesterday.
so for our rural members, when are your upcoming meetings in January?
I don't think that they have an
Yeah,
January meeting.
our next meeting is February.
Okay, but you could call a special meeting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, so what about our city folks? What kind of process does it take to get an IGA amendment in front of city council and approved?
Eve, that's you.
IGA amendment, I think is 2 readings of an
Okay.
ordinance. And so it is either, we're on the 16th of January. So we have a study session in another, we got the 16th of January, which is a regular meeting, so it could be on that. And we have the 23rd, which is a study session that if the mayor approved it, we could do a special meeting. And then February 6th itself is a regular meeting too.
Okay, so
But it
we've
sounds
got,
like we have to have an answer before the 6th. I mean, that would be kind of pretty close.
that's cutting it very close, but we do have 3 upcoming dates, 1/16, 1/23, and 2/6.
And Emily, the rural board, if there's a good indication the city's going to approve it, we don't have to wait till their second meeting. I mean, we would go ahead and give the green light to the staff to proceed here. We just need to know that there's gonna be matching money coming.
I mean, if we got it through first reading, for example, then the rural could approve it and then take it back to the city for second reading.
We would be willing to do that.
Okay,
And
All right.
Steve, there is a 5th Tuesday, the 30th. I mean, I'm sure
I know,
council would prefer to have the day off, but it is an option.
Yes, Madam Mayor, there is this.
all right.
I
So
didn't
we
want
can,
to be that
we can
bold.
consider
Being
1:30
bold.
as,
There would be another time there.
Yeah.
But those
right.
2 are the meeting times.
Who's that?
On the 30th,
On the 30th.
yeah, there's a 5th
It's the
Tuesday.
5th Tuesday, so we don't usually meet on 5th Tuesdays. I've never done that since I've been sitting.
Right.
But
I noted it in my notes as break in case of emergency.
Yeah.
But we'll see if we can do something other than that, not have
We
to call
would
city
need
council back.
quorum.
on that-
Chair, can I ask another question?
Sure, absolutely.
I'm gonna try to keep this simple, but that 1.425 million, the match, does that represent us getting this done by February 7th, and after February 7th, this is more than 1.4?
No.
Yes, so you got it, or Chief Ward, it would go back down to 1.3.
It would be, yeah,
Yeah, it'll
1.3.
be 1.3 if we can get it done.
Okay,
We can say $250,000 as an authority if we can get it done
so
sooner.
1.425 in effect is worst case scenario, period.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
And the reason I told you why we approved that 1.425, we realized the obstacles and roadblocks that you're up against. We want you to know that we're prepared if we get an approval at some point to go with it.
Gotcha. So the cost is $2.6 million, and the IGA or whatever we would do is asking us to bring up to that 1.3 million and have that committed in a funding source and to you, so you could sign the agreement by the 7th of February. And that's finding in our budget $1.3 million that needs to be found. It's not like we can put it off. It needs to be found, put in your project account so you can then make the transaction.
Yeah, and you know, if we just get a good faith indication it's gonna happen, the rural board is anxious to make this happen. That's a great savings for us, for everybody.
That's
Paul?
I had a question, Chief. Have we committed any dollars to the build of this truck? Have we made any commitment, I'm sorry, dollars, excuse me, made any contractual commitment to Superback on this? No, okay. So they're just trying to help us by extending that. Is that correct?
Well, it was, we had requested it. I mean, those deadlines are natural deadlines that they have in place. We talked about the relationship with SBI.
Right.
Realize SBI is one of two partners here. Sutphen is the primary manufacturer. SBI has a component of that. So SBI extended the courtesy as best they could, but because Sutphen is outside that realm, we weren't able to negotiate anything with them.
Okay, thank you.
So I was trying to understand the first comment here. Lost reserve diesel engine. What's that?
So
I don't
Chief
understand.
Ward might be able to talk to this better than I do.
Yeah.
As far as the emissions go.
Oh, okay, so something to do with it.
Change of emission. Go ahead, Chief Ward.
Yeah, that 2026, there's a new diesel emission standard that comes into play. Yeah, most of the manufacturers are already pulling in these new engines that meet that. They have a low stock of the current existing emissions engines available. And as of right now, we're fairly confident through Sutphen that we're going to be able to get one of the current or two of the current emissions engines as long as we get this done within the proposal timeframe. They're not guaranteeing it, but they're fairly confident that we can get that. But the new emission standard for 2026, which we have to go to, then increases each of the diesel engines by $50,000 approximately.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if we were trying to wait and get a new standard vehicle, or if we were trying to get, I don't want to use the word under the wire,
Yes.
to get the current standard.
Yeah. So they're holding two Cummins engines.
Yeah. That's
Sounds like a
bittersweet.
green penalty to me.
Yeah, I just want to understand. Thank you. So, and then the 240-day delay is not there because it is 3 years now. If we get this in by the
So
second.
that 240-day delay is because right now we have these two spots reserved by SVI in their build schedule. There's a large order by FDNY that if we get behind it, that's what it would delay it in addition.
It's on the assembly line. So we got two spots on the assembly line. If not, we fall behind FDNY.
But is this plan to get those two slots
Yes.
reserved?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So we're trying to avoid that penalty of 240 additional days.
And so all Brian has to do is find 1.3.
Been delegated, just like that.
Yeah, easy task.
Okay.
Brian, can we ask for any thoughts or comments you might have on this?
Yeah. Permission to speak freely.
For us right now, any dollar we add to the 2024 budget is coming right out of the emergency reserves. That has to be the advice I gave to council
Okay,
and to CMO, is that, you know, we will have those reconciliation amounts at the end of the year, like we
Yeah.
always do.
Yeah.
You're well familiar, and that can shake out to be $3-4 million.
yeah.
But we are projecting to be further behind than that. So in a sense, that money's spoken for, and if we do appropriate it for another purpose like this,
Mhm.
then that would just add to the shortfall. So that's my concern, and that's really the caution that I have to put around anything that we look at right now, including tonight, right? We're gonna talk about a couple things
Yeah.
tonight. We have to keep it in that context because it's getting nearer and it is gonna be very impactful.
But one way or another, we need to order these two pieces of equipment, correct? I mean, you can delay it 6 months or whatever, but it's just gonna cost more and take even longer. So at some point, we have to bite the bullet and buy it, right? I mean, that's what I'm looking at. We gotta buy it. If not 2024, 2025, but then we're probably 4 years out and getting.
Well, and that's a fair point, full transparency. Let's just say we push them back.
Mhm.
You're not just pushing them back. Everything in the fleet has a tendency to basically drop back as well. So there is a downstream effect to that. The apparatus replacement program is based on the National Fire Protection Association's recommendations. So we're meeting that standard and our fleet is reflective of that. So we just gotta understand, anything that's pushed back, all of our fleet is affected by that.
It's not like it's a want, I just want a new truck. It's like.
Exactly.
We need to get.
So right now, piece of apparatus will leave our fleet, active duty to our fleet after 20 years. So anything pushing back goes beyond 20 years, and they're eligible for antique plates at 20 years. I don't say that jokingly, I mean, that's just the truth of the matter.
I've got a question. Can you clarify, is reserves and emergency fund, are those the same buckets?
To be specific, this is what we call our contingency reserve. So it's our emergency fund balance in the general.
This is the council contingency, but the 15%,
Correct.
Yeah.
15% reserve.
How much is that 15% for us people that don't deal with it?
It's about 17.8 million right now.
Thank you. And Chief, on this amount that the city would be paying, how soon would you need that in the bank, so to speak?
Well, in order for us to sign anything, we would have to have it prior to February 7th.
Yeah, it's probably have to have a second meeting on the 23rd, when we can wire transfer you, do something to get it.
We actually, we're in the same account as the city.
So, yeah,
It's just an interfund transfer.
So I don't see that as a problem. We'll get
getting
it
it before
Because
council.
then you can't sign, or
approve.
whoever would sign the agreement can't sign it legally until it's got the money behind it. But you can only once.
Yeah.
Then you go to jail.
And then signing everything with crossbars in front of it.
It's just Frazier that goes to jail though, right?
What's that?
It's just Frazier that goes, you get the same sign?
Yeah, it's whoever signs it.
Yeah. You were the one. Yeah, let's take our time on that, all right.
So until the build happens, I might ask a question, because we talked about this a couple weeks ago, was that 2.6 million, whatever the magic number is, we do get interest on that. I know you don't want to hear this, Steve, but we do get interest on this, right?
The fleet fund earns interest on its fund balance, and that's calculated by the city's overall portfolio return, or whatever proportion of the fund balance is.
Okay, so do we turn over $2.6 million to SVI?
So we have to turn over, I believe it's a little over 25% at signing.
Okay.
And then as we go through the process, we'll pay more with a large payment at the end.
Okay, but there is some slight interest on that we get through the fund.
There would be, the portfolio, I don't know what it earned this last year. I don't keep up with the investment report anymore.
What did our portfolio, what was our?
Well, the average return over the last year was in the twos, but it's shooting up now because the older issues are going on. Right, so
3 times 2 is $60,000 potentially, maybe.
or an interest, something like that.
Like a cup of coffee, so.
That'll buy all those
Without
stamps
the
we worried
couple,
about,
You
Steve.
don't get my cup.
That's your-
I have enough of my marrow. Just saying.
Oops, another 60,000.
No coffee cup.
Brian, do you have any questions we can answer for you or any thinking outside the box or?
Well, I guess, if I want to speak freely, we're in quite a bind right now as far as putting anything else on top of our current general fund spend, and that's where this would have to come from. As you know, because of the ballot, because of 300.
And that's why we just gave 7 million and, yeah. That's why we just gave 7 million to the authority outside our normal 80-20 split. Because we know the bind, and we appreciate it.
7 million?
Yeah,
For personnel for the next 3 years.
yeah, that's
For the personnel.
above and beyond the 80-20 split. The world's saying, we're giving the authority $7 million.
And I
couple
want to ask
questions
you some
about that
questions
too.
about that too.
Okay.
But my primary, I guess, message would be if our partners in the rural could help us at all, it'll be helping us with timing. And I can't say when necessarily we'd be able to pay it back, date certain, but, and I know, I understand the urgent need. We bring this in front of the council now, you know, we can't approve it, but again, as CFO, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that's coming right out of our emergency funds, and if there isn't a way, we could either have an agreement to settle something in the future or to discuss it in the future. That would be my ask, would be, can we get a break on the time?
I'm gonna ask a naive question here, and you probably all know the answers, you deal with it. Can we lend the city the money till next year? I mean, can we sign a document next year? We get to 1.3 million. I mean, we want to make it happen. We can make it happen financially. But we want to be a partner on this.
But we want to owe you the money.
I know you do.
That's what, I mean, if it's a loan or something, we need to make sure we honor our loans.
Absolutely.
It's not a grant, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Because we gave you
So how do we do it?
450,000, how much, Paul's my
I
expert,
don't remember.
470,000 earlier this year that we don't have paperwork on. So this would be totally separate. And that's why I'm asking, something documented, a loan.
Could you do installment payments that?
The rural will do whatever the city would engineer.
We run into Tabor issues.
Oh,
With the borrowings are very regulated by Tabor on the governmental side, and that's where this would be in the general fund. So we might have issues with that, and then we would have issues with multi-year commitment.
oh,
It'd be subject to non-appropriation. So we can do it, but it might have to take kind of a funky form. If we wanted to create a loan, because borrowing is very closely regulated.
And my thoughts there, I mean, we're okay with funky loans. We've had a great partnership. We trust the city. And we just need to know that it's gonna be paid back.
Yeah, so my thought was exactly the same, which is, first of all, this would be a transaction between the city and the rural. So this would be a conversation to occur between Linda and Vince. But the first thing that came to my mind is you would have to include a non-appropriations clause in it. And I think there would need to be a discussion about what happens if the funding isn't available next year to pay it back. But again, I'm not counsel to the rural or to the city, so I'm in kind of an awkward position. I certainly could bring that up with Linda and Vince during our meeting, though.
Please do.
Okay.
Hey, Chief,
Yes.
it's kind of interesting being the guy that's been around here for a while, and Jeff probably remembers this. When we were making the transition to the authority, prior to transitioning the apparatus to the authority, the rural had to replace 3 water tenders and a engine and didn't have the funds to do that. And I believe the money was loaned out of the apparatus account or fleet fund. And the apparatus was purchased and the rural paid that back over a couple, 3 years. So kind of interesting that we've done this before, just the opposite way.
Good point. And I do remember that.
No one's in jail.
And we've had a great partnership, so we want to make this work. Steve, did you want to add something there?
No, I'm good on this one. I'm hoping we'll have a little discussion about your plan for personnel thing too.
Sure.
I thought I could get them one at a time, so let's get it.
Okay.
I like that. Appreciate it.
Where do we go from here?
do we need a motion?
That wraps up, I think, item.
I think you have direction and come back, right?
Yeah, we do, with the February 7th date, according to you, Steve, and the meetings that you have before you, we have beyond this meeting to basically firm up a decision, correct?
Yeah, I mean, our council will have to vote to do this, so I can't speak for them.
Right.
I know how
Rural has
important.
to act too.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess, Emily, you're gonna have a conversation with Vince and Linda, so we
Yes.
can react to that discussion, bring that back to this body to take it to the next level, correct?
That's right. So I will reach out to both of them right after this call or this evening, and request that we get that meeting scheduled as soon as possible. I don't know if Linda wants to be the drafter of the amendment, because it is the rural's money. And we'll talk about the letter agreement for the personnel, understanding that's a secondary concern and the possibility of the rural loaning apparatus money to the city. Something's gonna need to be drafted and presented to the rural and the city. I mean, knock on wood, it could get done by the 16th, but I don't know how quickly your board packets go out, so could be the 23rd for the city. This board meets again on the 31st, but it would really just be an update. this board won't sign anything other than possibly the letter agreement regarding the personnel. So I think at this point, what I need to do is sort of successfully transition both the project and the urgency to the other two attorneys, and keep things moving forward that way.
Further discussion? Chief?
No. If we take their direction.
Okay, it looks like everybody wants to try and make this happen. That's good news. All right, that will take us to the next item. Conduct a public hearing, consider a motion to adopt resolution R164, adopting a supplemental budget regarding appropriation of monies to and expenditure of monies from the LFRA general funds for the Loveland Fire Rescue Authority, state of Colorado, calendar year beginning first day of January 24 and ending on the last day, December 24. So I need somebody to make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Emily, certified for the record.
Yes, I will certify for the record that notice of the public hearing on the budget amendment was published as duly required by law, and the authority did not receive any public comments prior to today's public hearing.
Any comments, Brian? You're a public. Thank you for being here. Okay, without any further comments from the public, I need a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. We're back in regular session. Okay. Want to talk, Chief?
So the 1.483 is the first year for the requested staff. So that figure would go up to approximately 1.9 in the second year. 1.483 is inclusive of equipment and training for the requested personnel. If you recall, this is our rovers, our logistics staff, GIS accreditation personnel, and others. And they are spread out over the course of 2024. It's not an immediate X number of personnel, with the exception of those going into the academy. So those personnel, obviously, we would want to be making notifications to them ASAP for the February start of the academy.
Open it up for discussion.
So the first thing here in the background, it says that this motion has already been approved by the Loveland Rural Fire Protection District.
That is correct.
So last night this was approved.
Yes.
Okay. So then the plan is that graciously that you would commit funds the first year at 1.483, but then the rural board would then commit funds for 1.89 for the next 3 years, or if the district is formed ahead of that.
Yeah.
So what happens if the district is not formed?
It stops at the end of 3 years. And the question, I think that's probably on your mind.
Yes.
Chief's already expressed it. What happens to those people?
Yes.
Well, I think through just natural attrition and stuff, we're gonna have to start working this in advance and say people won't be replaced or whatever. And without trying to sound cold on this, I mean, in the business world, we lay people off. And I know that's contrary to what government likes to do, but hopefully we won't be in that position. But that's where we're at a rural board. I mean, the only way we can do this is if there's an understanding. And hopefully everybody sees this, we're trying to do a good thing here. We're committed the next 3 years. I mean, and if the concern is we're not a district by then maybe the city can step up to the plate, find some more money 4 years from now. And a rural can find some more money and we keep everybody on board. But this is the best we can do as a rural board. We're basically using oil and gas money. Unfortunately, we just passed this mill this last fall. So we're in a great financial position.
Let me clarify. the oil and gas would not be used for these positions. This would be your additional mill to
Right.
cover these positions, because that is an ongoing expenditure.
Right, so
But
I'm
that's
just,
why we have the money, that's my point.
I'm kind of maybe looking to our HR group on this, is that you're essentially creating almost a contract hire situation where this funding is multi-year funding, dependent upon the obligation of that following year. Normally, we don't hire, we try not to hire as a contract, but we have consultants and professional consultants and those kind of people, but we don't hire our staff that way, because in 3 years, they don't know if they have a job or not. And so I'm trying to figure out how they stand. So you're okay with this approach in HR? Because I mean, and the other thing is, you're right, Chair.
Let me speak
In
for
3
HR.
years, if I have, first, we have a victim service coordinator position, half-time. We get the other half by grant. So every year we're doing that. And one of these years, what's happened to us last year, they actually said, no more grant. So we had to go buy it. And so we funded the full position, a position, and the city took that. And so we did that. I'm looking at 13 positions, almost $2 million. So it's a traveling cliff. And so that's where I'm just wanting to make sure because I don't want to let them go. And after a while, it's almost like they carry a different identification, that position does. I'm worried about that. Is that okay? And so that's where I'm trying to figure out all the steps here, because I'd love to say, yeah, 3 years, we'll hit the jackpot. Don't let Brian hear this. We'll have $2 million to put into this and continue to fund these staff, because they do great things for LFRA, and we're part of it.
So not an HR decision. I mean, I'm obviously concerned about that. I'm also looking at the people that are online here. Every single person on there would be concerned about this. So Emily probably described it best as it's a SAFER grant. So it's a 3-year SAFER grant, which is traditionally what they offer. To Steve's point in our conversation is you have a SAFER grant, those are typically positions that you can build upon. At the end of that, say, okay, I can absorb that cost. To your point of 13 positions, that's a big chunk for them to be able to say, are we going to be able to fund that through an 80-20 split beyond the third year? Correct.
Well, like, again, but it's also, we're trying to drive to a district, right? That's the end goal. I know we have to do a lot of work to figure out what those specific milestones are. But this was a thought process to get us to that district.
The world is just trying to help the authority. I mean, we do one thing, fire. We're in a position right now where we can do something like this, get us through the next 3 years. I mean, these people are going to be important to us the next 3 years. Hopefully we can keep them beyond that, but they're going to be important to us. And again, I would be very surprised over the course of the next 3-4 years, we're not going to just lose 13 or 14 people anyway. I mean, every year we lose what, 4 or 5 people?
I mean, we overhired by 3 in preparation for attrition.
Yeah.
Now, I do have to be upfront. Some of these positions are civilian positions, so that's not a natural attrition process for the line personnel.
And we certainly don't want to be cold about it. We certainly care about people, but
So let me ask, because obviously the hope is we get to a fire district, but you're asking, what if the worst happens and we don't? Brian, when do we start to see the increase when Centerra sunsets, both Centerra, when we start to get our property tax and the MFA, the original MFA? When do we start to see that money increase for us?
Well, it expires in 2029. We would see the sales tax that first year. I mean, we would have to-
2029,
Right, we would have to wait 1 year for the property tax.
okay.
The amount, exactly, the amount remitted in 29 is for 28. So, but that should be our latest guess, around 4.5 million a year for the two.
Okay. Doesn't meet the 3-year.
But if we did this right, Emily helped me, the goal of the district is to not increase taxes, to use existing revenues to convert to a mill levy of 11.1 to make us a district. So the only ask of the community is are you willing to transition with no additional monies at being asked to a fire district, which is taking all city resources and putting them into the district.
Well,
No,
chief,
I know
it will be an additional monies to city residents because they don't currently pay that 11 odd mills.
But if we were to convert existing revenues, so we would take existing mills and other revenues and convert those. Now, we would have to set that fire district mill, but ultimately, they would not be paying more because, help me out here, Brian, we would be converting some, existing mills would be converted, property tax converted.
Are you saying the city would lower its property tax?
Well, our thought, Emily, is that at some point, this is by no means set in stone, but if we were to go to the community and say, right now, the city funding level is about $20 million.
Yep.
If we were to say to the city, okay, we're gonna raise $20 million within our boundaries to fund LFRA, pretty reasonable to assume the community would say, well, that's a double dip, because you're
Yeah.
keeping the 20 million that we already pay in sales tax and property tax. So
Yes.
we would have to look at some mechanism to lower our
Yeah.
revenue.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So that can be done a few different ways. The way that is cleanest, though not always practical, is for the city to pass an ordinance that says if inclusion into the fire district is approved, then the city will lower its property tax by X mills, because then voters can see, okay, my property taxes are going up by 11 to get into the rural, but they're going down by 8. So really it's just a net of 3, right? It's easy to understand. There's other ways though that we could address that. So I think I understand what you're saying now, Chief, is it may not be an 11 mil property tax increase on the city voters. It may be a 0 or smaller property tax.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to talk or emphasize is, we keep talking about a district. If we do this right, it's not such a huge ask of the community that would be contentious. That if we can neutralize it, and all we're literally doing is saying we're gonna push the resources over to a district without asking for more money. I know we can't forecast what the outcome of an election would be, but I would feel like. it's
Some kind of an
a safer
offset.
bet. It would be a much safer bet going that route, so, versus what we just experienced.
Anyway, hopefully everybody sees this as an opportunity to get us through the next 3 years.
So to jump on Steve's question, what do you see? Let's just say we're approaching that. We're making progress towards this district. Emily's laid us out a great plan. We're chipping away at it. We're hitting our benchmarks. But we're not going to meet that mark of 3 years. So certainly I don't want to have staff out there, walking through a minefield of concern about their employment. What options do you see that we could put on the table to give them security that they are not theoretically a contract employee?
I guess we're asking you the same question, Chief. I mean, the rural board's trying to be the good guy here. And we're saying, here's a way to get us through the next 3 years. I mean, in essence, what we're doing is paying the cities 80% for the next 3 years, which is what you asked for in your budget. So, I mean, this is a gift to the city again. 3 years from now, if we're not a district, I mean, that would have still been your ask up front. I would like to think that the city's working towards finding a way to fund the fire authority correctly.
So if I can offer, sometimes on those safer positions or on frankly other temporary positions, you can just be very upfront about what you're posting. Call them temporary positions, temporary firefighter position or temporary admin, whomever position. And make it clear in the posting that this position is funded for 3 years, and after that, you're not sure what will happen.
I'll do it either.
It may narrow the pool of who applies, but it may not, right? Some people may want to get in for the experience. They may be people who are currently with your organization that are looking to make a move. I don't know, but you can be upfront about what the position is. And hopefully we do move to a district in 3 years and the position continues, but you can just say, continuation of the position beyond 2026 is dependent upon funding.
Yeah,
Funding availability.
all fair statements, but I mean, the financial investment of the LFRA on the front end of these employees is so substantial. Plus, I can tell you in the competitive environment that we work in, 0 applicable. Yeah, you could get somebody just literally out of the Ames Academy trying to get some experience, but
That's not who we want.
Yeah, not challenging what you're saying, Emily, you're spot on. I just think the upfront cost that we're gonna invest, time, training, equipment is substantial, very substantial.
I think we'll figure it out as we go along. We always do. I don't want to be too Pollyanna about it, but I think we'll figure it out as we go along. This is the opportunity to get the people on board.
I'm not fighting you on the people, I'm incredibly appreciative of that, I just wanna make sure that we're all.
Again, you're gonna lose people.
I guess that's what I hang my hat on.
Yeah,
May not recoup.
Yeah.
All 13, but 9.
yeah. 3 years from now, we may be saying, chief, you can't have this other thing because we gotta take care of personnel. There might be cuts elsewhere, but I think when we hire somebody, we hire them as a career position, somebody we hope will retire with us.
They have one, I can ask a question. They have 4 MIT crew PT, so there's just some part-time.
That is seasonal mitigation crew.
Oh, that's your seasonal
Yeah.
mitigation. Because I think a couple of these, I mean, the investment may not be so bad in 3 years. Because some of these, like a data tech and analyst, positions like that,
Yeah.
so, I mean, they're not the most expensive, but that would make the buy-in to help carry it over past 3 years less.
So that's a great point, and I'm glad we're having this conversation, especially with people online, is those are seasonal, so that could be, there is a set date for them. We do offer a free overhire, so we do an overhire of 3 each year. We could very much scrutinize that moving forward, as we kind of look at this plan. And to your point, there's 7 positions right there, that can be controlled.
Makes it.
Yeah.
I think
It's
so.
more
Feel comfortable.
comfortable. Yeah.
So I don't think not having to do the whole thing. Some part of that.
Yeah.
And again, be pessimistic. Just realism is drilled into it.
No, I understand that.
3 years and 3 years, I think.
You're
give us-
hardwired to think a certain way, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm doing the business community, I'm hardwired to think another way. I need somebody for the next 6 months, I'm gonna hire somebody for the next 6 months.
It's that, but it's, I think the idea here is that you're not gonna get 3 lieutenant rovers on a contract, because they can go somewhere else. You're not gonna get your training lieutenant, get those others you need to offer sure. So we need, that's how we need to do that. You have a plan?
Well, I need a motion to approve the resolution as written.
So moved.
For a second,
Second.
further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Paul, please thank the rural board for the $7 million.
Yeah. Christmas basket next week.
I never thought it'd be so hard to give the authorities some money.
But is that not subject to some kind of agreement that comes to successful?
We didn't put any contingencies in there at all. Steve, we're just being good guys here.
No, I know, but didn't you want some kind of letter or something? We talked
You
about
want to
that.
memorialize.
You want-
We'll get
Yeah.
it documented.
Yeah,
That's all I'm saying.
yeah, just so.
In the event that half the rural people are gone on the board.
Yeah, so you have something. Right.
People
I'm sure
come
we
and
can-
go.
We will find escorts for you to go across the street.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, why don't you say that, chief?
Complete traffic control.
There you go, much better.
Okay, we don't need an executive session. Possible action, any additional matters? No? Other business for board consideration?
No, I just want to, since the mayor had to leave early during yesterday's meeting, I would like to take the opportunity to express our thanks on behalf of all the members of LFRA for your generous gifts. We have a fitness program. A couple of our folks are now on a retraining program because of all the goodies you gave, but seriously, it was a nice gesture on your behalf as well as the chairman's behalf to visit all of our folks on duty. We appreciate that.
I appreciate that they're giving up their family time, holiday time. I think.
in, Council Mallon. I know you would have attended, but we would have had a quorum, which would have
He had
changed.
grandkids.
Anyway,
Turned it
I had a
down for
house full of
grandkids.
grandkids and dogs.
Next year, there'll be no excuse.
I've been volunteer.
Have a rolling meeting.
Oh, I've got a quick question while we have Emily on the horn still.
Yeah.
Emily, do you feel fairly confident when we have our conversation or workshop regarding moving to a district that you can put some fairly good deadlines and milestones in there that, I mean, obviously they're gonna move a little bit as we move down the road, but is that something you feel confident that we can kind of keep us in the rails?
Yes.
Never seen that response.
I've never seen that look either.
No, I mean, I can, right?
Different
I'll
question.
tell you the fastest I have ever, now it was an authority, so I wasn't dealing with an election in that, but the fastest I've ever done a district combination is 5 months. It was lightning speed. Slowest I've ever done it, 3.5 years. And so a lot of it isn't driven by the legal process. A lot of it is driven by how long does it take the parties to negotiate the agreement. And I can't control that, right? So I actually am having, I've got 2 other districts that are talking about merger right now. And I just put together a timeline for them. And I said, I think I said that the very fast timeline was 13 months. If we did everything on the quick side, if we did everything on the slow side, 44 months. And the most realistic was 18 to 24. So I can do something similar, and I intend to, is kind of, this is how long each phase takes. If we take the minimum amount of time in each phase, this is how quickly we could do it. If we drag it out and take the maximum amount of time, this is how long it'll take. And where do I think you're probably going to fall in the middle? So that's how I had planned to approach it, unless you want me to take a more a different approach.
I trust your judgment.
Okay.
I just know that there's lots of moving parts that we're gonna have to put together, so just curious
Yeah.
if that's.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did do exactly this structure in 2022 or 1. So maybe what I'll do is go back and see how long did that project take from beginning to end. And that might be helpful as well, because it was literally the same election amoeba style process.
Yeah. Apply to this.
The amoeba being the existing districts overtaking. Decision.
Thanks, Emily.
Yeah, of course.
Steve has a question.
So we've talked about getting started, but I don't think we were started yet, right? So
No,
does
we're
the
not
board need to
started.
give you
There's
some
a-
direction, or have we given you direction, or you feel
So-
like you've got some consensus direction? to
Yeah,
give?
we have a meeting coming up in February. Linda will be there, I'll be there, Vince will be there, and I'm putting together a presentation for that. What I plan to do was to focus only on the merger structure where the district expands its boundaries over the city. It doesn't sound like we're interested in creating a brand new district. So let's take that off the table and not talk about it anymore, because it's not helping, right? It's just confusing at that point. So that is the direction I've gotten, which is, now that we have narrowed it down to one structure, can I get more specific about what that looks like, what the timing looks like, what the steps look like, and really start to drill down into the process. And I don't know if you plan to take any action at the conclusion of that meeting, but step 1 is to start drafting the IGA. I've got great forms, so I can start that whenever the parties say go.
So February 15th is the joint workshop that we have, and Brian should have received that as well, as far as an invitation to that as well.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll let you know.
Okay.
February 15th, more than a
Yes.
week.
I think we extended that, and Christy, can you help me on that? We extended that to the full rural board, this board as well,
I
correct?
don't tell you exactly, but you have that.
Thought that was the plan.
I think in terms of timing, you will not be able to get to an election this November, nor do I think you would want to.
That's
It
right,
wouldn't,
you have to.
yeah, it wouldn't leave you any time to do public education or
I do
feedback.
have it, I was looking.
I don't think that was the plan, Emily.
9 a.m.
Yeah. So you're looking at potentially probably your slowest path, or excuse me, your fastest path is May 2025. Your most likely path is November 2025. And your slowest path is November 2026 in terms of election timing.
Number 26, worst case scenario.
Yeah. I mean, if we want to talk about like, well, how long is this funding lasting? It's lasting through 26, right?
Right.
So I think that puts you right in, if we aim for November 25 for an election, that hits the sweet spot, knowing that we have a backup date of November 26th if we had to go there.
Are we able to do May of 2026?
No,
If we needed to, okay.
you
has to
can't.
be-
It can only be at a
Fine.
regular special district election, which are odd years only, or November of any year.
One more thought on the concerns on personnel. The rural will probably still be committed to 20% of that dollar amount starting in 2027. Hopefully, the city would be able to come up with some money too at that time. I guess I just don't want us to get hung up and have anybody concerned that we're not committed to hiring people to make a career here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's my biggest concern is making sure that folks are confident that we're not putting people in a questionable position. So to the point of the seasonals and the attrition rate, utilizing those as our point of measure and point of opportunity.
Yeah, we've said it all along, we're all committed to the employees. That's our number one priority.
All right, folks, I hate to drop off early, but I am going to take my leave so I can get on my next call. But I will be reaching out to Vince and Linda this evening and we will get things moving for you.
Thanks.
Thank
Emily.
you.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Okay. Steve, did you have something else?
Just the graduation ceremony, pinning
Yes.
ceremony is Thursday.
Thursday, 5:30. It
5:30.
starts at 5:30.
Okay, there's no,
That was a different
Different thing.
organization
Okay.
that we were affiliated with.
not
So there was
hard
some,
time.
yeah, there was kind of some pre-activities for a half hour and everybody's showing up thinking, but this is ours, so it starts at 5:30 and it'll conclude before 8 o'clock. I promise you that.
Foundations check.
Yes. And I received I certainly understand, we appreciate it. Yes. So, and we are gonna recognize the incoming board, we'll do yours figuratively.
Virtually.
Yeah.
Cardboard cutout.
Richard Bolt
Yeah,
modeled it.
yeah, I'll play the part, I'll just have a.
I'd rather be with you folks.
Yeah. Thank you all,
You've got
I
your
appreciate it.
scheduling to do to get this on the agenda for
Yeah.
council.
Okay, if there's no further business, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everyone, thanks.
All right, I got 2 hours to kill.
Gosh. There's a new experience.
It's not like you live in Ohio
You
or
know, I
something.
can get home by